Hello, everyone. My name is Gitika Gorthi, and today I am very, very honored and excited to be interviewing a very special space champion whom I met on LinkedIn, Miss Shelley Svoren. Miss Svoren is the CEO and founder of Infinite Branches. She lives by the motto, always be curious. She earned her BS from the University of Oregon with a focus on finance, economics, and Scandinavian studies. She also serves on the board of the International Aviation Women's Association as the network's vice president. Additionally, she serves on the National Business Aviation Association's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Working Group and moderates panels and speaks at conferences regarding aviation and marine industries. She also was the keynote speaker for FedEx's Express Women's Network 2021 annual forum, where she discussed the evolution of her career and the trajectory forward. And I'm extremely honored for her to speak on the Ignited Thinkers platform to share this exact journey of what led her to where she is today. So welcome, Ms. Warren. Thank you so much for taking your time to share your story as well as inspire the next generation.
Well, Gitika, I am so honored to be here that you reached out to me. I really admire what you're doing, and whatever I can do to support you, your viewers, I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Thank you so much. Before we get into kind of like the meat of how you got into aviation, first, could you tell us more about your typical day? I know there's usually not a typical day, but how does your day usually run?
Well, my day usually starts at about 5 a.m. my time. I love to get up early. Reside on the West Coast, and so much starts happening by 8 a.m. on the East Coast. So I really like to flex. What I do, I love my Nespresso, make sure I have that. And then I sit down and I try and read for a solid hour. And what I mean by reading, I enjoy the articles by McKinsey and Company. Fast Company is another news source that I subscribe to. I also enjoy Crunchbase. I have friends who read the Wall Street Journal and The Economist. And so we share articles amongst us that get us thinking about what's going on in the broader world in addition to aviation. I also enjoy reading the National Business Aviation Association's daily email. And what this does for me, it helps center me and get me excited about the day that's coming along. There's also one thing I will admit to, because I think it's really important to center yourself and find some inner sense of gravity. And this may sound a little crazy, but I do find time to meditate, to focus, and really get ready, in addition to working out and getting my brain going after reading the articles, having some Nespresso, having that moment of pause. It helps me put my day together. And sometimes I listen to really fantastic podcasts. Amongst my favorite, anything by Brene Brown and Reid Hoffman get me thinking as well too. They focus not only on business and leadership, but also on being the leader of myself first. I can't be a good leader. I can't focus on the things that my various teams, my clients need, unless I'm trying to be the best person I can possibly be.
Wow, I can't believe you fit all of that in 24 hours or the whole day. That's crazy. I mean, I do have to ask the question, which is how do you balance your schedule? Because I feel like that, apart from all the incredible work you're doing in business aviation, on top of being a part of so active in the community, plus also taking care of your mental and physical well-being, how do you find time to balance everything? What advice would you give for others who are maybe like struggling with everything?
Make yourself a priority. It's when you step onto an aircraft and you go through the safety procedures, they always say put your oxygen mask on first. I've found, and I had a breaking point earlier this year where I wasn't doing that. And this caused me to take a step back and realize this is so important. You can't move forward if you don't take care of yourself and your needs first. And sometimes our weeks are crazy. They demand a 70-hour work week. So how do you navigate through that? How do you come down from that? and refocus and replenish. It's so important to take time out. And if you have to schedule time on your calendar, if you have to block it out, I do this. This is where I take care of myself so that I can take care of you and others. That's really critical. And it's amazing what comes out of that.
Yeah, I think that mindset shift is really important as we go on in our daily lives, just to remember to first take care of ourselves, and then we can be a better version of ourselves every day, whatever we do. So I think that's a really important mindset shift that we all need to like reconsider in our lives. And also, I was reading about infinite branches, and the first thing that came to my mind is, what was the inspiration behind, founding this? Could you tell us more about infinite branches?
Absolutely. So, what I like to think of infinite branches as being it, one of the job descriptions I've seen around LinkedIn and other places, and it's been one that I've seen predominantly growing over the past few years, is a chief of staff position. And that is essentially the glue that keeps everything together. It is someone who can work seamlessly to meet the organization's needs, can work across different groups, make things happen in a way that helps the company develop strategies for growth and sustainability. And that is what I decided to do. I created this organization that really looks for ways for companies to be themselves. Now, a lot of small businesses do not have the ability to hire somebody full time to do that. And what we do is we go in, we listen. And that's the most important thing. Listen, find out what the pain points are, and then go in and ask the great questions of what do you need to achieve your successes. But even before we ask that question, we ask, what does success look like to you? And tell us more about why you think that. And it's not meant to be accusative or anything that's negative. We're curious. We want to learn more about why you think the way you do. And that way it helps us build a framework of how do we achieve that and what that could look like today, tomorrow, a year down the road, and even 5 years, to help a company evolve over time and achieve what they ultimately have as their vision.
And what was Oh, yeah, go ahead.
so so I had worked at an organization for 17 years, 14 of which had been in aviation, financing private aircraft, or business aircraft is what we like to call it in aviation, what a lot of people think of as private aircraft. Business aircraft facilitates just that business. And I had been at a point where, while I was achieving many successes, I didn't feel like I was growing. And becoming a part of Iowa, the International Aviation Women's Association, in the manner in which I did, it pushed me outside of my comfort zone. It pushed me into a true leadership role and working with people across different areas of the aviation industry that moved beyond business aviation. It involved cargo, it involved commercial airlines, it involved entrepreneurial endeavors, and it really reopened my eyes to say, there's so much more out here. There's more that I can do. There's more exciting things that are out there for me and others in the industry. And I had a wonderful push by my now 21-year-old who said point blank, Mommy, you're not happy. You deserve to be happy. And he looked at a photo of my grandparents and he said, they would want you to be happy. And from there, I sat with it and I looked at, what are the things that I am really good at? And then what are the things that I enjoy doing of all of those things that I'm really good at? So sometimes so a Venn diagram started emerging. And as far as creating the company itself, it was something that I wanted to do for myself, I wanted to find a way to bring others in and create an environment filled with transparency and opportunity. So those are the things that I'm focused on. You'll see on my website, the design was created by our youngest son, who's 18, and he's studying to be a graphic artist. And as we look through our Scandinavian heritage, I took a look at the Norse goddesses. And as I was going through the descriptions, I was thinking, that doesn't fit, that doesn't fit. And I was almost tapped out until I reached the very bottom. And Yggdrasil is the tree of life. And what she represents, how she connects the world together. And it's actually the 9 realms of Norse mythology. I thought it was really appropriate and exciting. And I knew I couldn't use that as the name because it's virtually unpronounceable. But we thought about how infinite the possibilities are. And that's why we chose the name Infinite Branches.
Wow, that's really nice. I mean, and so glad to hear also that you being a mother and your children have also shaped who you are today. I think that's so impactful. And, I that kind of got me to the question, which is how has becoming a mother helped and, pushed you forward towards your goals? Did it teach you any new skills or, helped you become a better version of yourself? Because I think a lot of times in the aerospace industry, there's a lot of like stereotypes historically, like, oh, if you're a mother, you don't have time. But in reality, actually, can provide you with a new set of skills that I wanted to kind of get from your personal experience. Like, how did becoming a mother shape you?
Well, you walk in having all of these high hopes, these aspirations, and you realize that a lot of those are about you. And this is my journey. It may not be other people's journey. And what I found was that we have these 2 amazing sons that have vastly different interests and skills and these unique personalities. And what I've had to do along the way is recognize that and encourage them to be the best version of themselves. Along the way, it's amazing how they've challenged me, pushed me out of my comfort zone. I love them more than anything. And it's amazing to me that they have taught me so much about the Gen Z generation. It's really opened my eyes to take a look at the landscape of where they are today. And I'll give you an example of this. And one of your speakers on one of your previous podcasts mentioned this. When our oldest son, Liam, who's a computer and an electrical engineer, he came to me when he was 15 and said, "Mommy, I just want you to know I'm not going to attend a 4-year college." And I immediately screamed inside my head, not out loud, but I was very upset about this because I had worked very hard to attend a 4-year college. And he said, "No, listen to me." And he broke it down mathematically about how it was unlikely for him to stay in the state where we reside. He'd have to go outside of the state, what that would cost. And ultimately, he knew with his degree, ultimately, he'd like to move on and earn a master's. And so the overall cost, he was concerned about the return on his investment. And he said, there's a better way. If I attend the community college and I've checked into the coursework and I can attend this for 2 years and transfer into a UC school, and this is how much the cost would be. And he looked at me, and at the very end of the discussion, he said, and at the end of the day, no one cares where you started. It's where you graduated from that matters. And I looked at him, and everything he said was so well thought through that all I could think about was, I deserve a little bit of credit for giving birth to you. But it just, tongue in cheek, the thinking that went into it and showing the landscape for the challenges that the Gen Z is going through right now really made me think and pay attention to the fact that there's so many members of the Gen Z community who are facing issues that I never faced. This is the reality of where it is today. The Gen Zs that I have met through various interactions, different communities online, show a sense of realism married with a sense of optimism that's grounded in the work that they know they must do. It reminds me in some sense of Admiral Stockdale and his approach to survival when he was incarcerated in the Hanoi Hilton during the Vietnam era. You must stay realistic in order to stay the course. And I see that realism in Gen Z. One of my friends who I've met online through a community called Upstream had said, I think Gen Z is going to be the ones that save us. They know what they have to do. And this is why I love having conversations with members of the Gen Z community. It's really opened my eyes and made me ask, what can I learn? What am I not seeing? And if I have the power to affect change, how do I do that? So
Really,
there's mentorship on both sides, and that's what I look for.
yeah, that's definitely beautiful. And just to hear how, you were able to see that perspective as a mother and how that, kind of changed the way you viewed things. I think that's very beautiful. And, earlier we were talking about how you were into, you majored in finance, economics, and business. And so I'm kind of curious how you got into aviation. Like, were you always interested in space as a young girl, or is this something that developed over time?
Well, let me share a little bit more about my background. My father is a Marine colonel, retired from active duty. Once a Marine, always a Marine. So simplify to all the Marines, men and women who are out there, as well as all of the men and women who've served our nation. It means a lot, your service. I spent my time as a child around hangars, aircraft, flight simulators since I was about 6 months old, since about the time I could walk. And I was always fascinated by aircraft, flight, space, and Sally Ride was certainly one of my heroes. But I never saw it as being an industry for me because I wasn't seeing pilots that looked like me. And I put it aside. I studied at the University of Oregon, as you mentioned. Go Ducks! Love my Ducks. And I went in, I graduated during an economic downturn, not the Great Depression, but a very difficult time. And I took a job as a banking regulator. And from there, I moved into banking. I moved out into consumer products and technology. And I always had it in my mind that aviation was such a fascinating industry. And I would really enjoy learning more about it if I could, if the opportunity ever arose. So when I was working at my last employer, I had helped that particular organization become involved in the wine industry. And along the way, I became involved in hedge funds and the art industry as well. So unique industries were really my cup of tea and my specialty. And my former boss came on board to focus in on lending to private aviation and maritime industries. And so every time I'd see him, I would bug him. I'd ask him, how do you do this? For me, one of the greatest joys is to give me a mixed up Rubik's Cube and ask me to put it back together. And not knowing that I didn't know everything and having this resource available, I was dead set on bugging him every time I saw him, asking him some new question. And he took the time to say, to show me, this is how you do this. This is what you should consider when you do this. And I will always be appreciative for that. And he said, maybe one of these days we'll work together. And that day happened really unexpectedly. He called. His underwriter had left on vacation for 3 weeks to go abroad and hadn't told him in the middle of a deal. And he said, I will take whatever help you can give me. And I said, well, first of all, tell me about the client. It happened to be a client that I was working with in New York. And I said, I know everything there is to know about this client from a financial perspective, but I do not know the collateral. I'll work on this if you teach me about the collateral and how to view this, and the collateral being the aircraft that the client was purchasing. And that was our first deal together. And we learned so much. And every opportunity was an opportunity to learn more, expand my network, and grow my knowledge base. And one by one, over the course of 14 years, we closed over 200 transactions that amounted to over $1 billion in original commitments. And we did so without a single loss or single repossession, which in aviation finance is not common. So that's how I became involved in the aviation industry, by staying curious and looking for an opportunity when it presented itself. I said yes instead of saying, I'll think about it.
Yeah, you brought up like a few really good points I wanted to kind of expand on. Like the first one that you were saying about, how you never thought you could see yourself as a pilot just because of the lack of role models. And personally for myself, when I was younger, I've always been fascinated by space and like aerospace. I went to like the Air and Space Museum near Washington, D.C. because I live like 30 minutes away. But I like in elementary school, I never actually saw a space career as something attainable or something real per se. And so, I had to search for and seek for those role models. And thankfully, in this day and age, there are a lot more role models that, with a quick Google search you can find. But it's so nice to just see, such diverse people, people in the industry these days. And it's very inspiring. Like, for example, with the commercial SpaceX launch, there were such diverse people. Dr. C.N. Proctor was the fourth African American woman into space. And just there's so many other incredible women and other minority groups that are going into space. So it's really exciting to see. And so I can definitely relate with what you were saying with that. And also what you were mentioning about never giving up and always being curious and not saying no to an opportunity. When I was founding Ignited Thinkers, I remember I would send like 500 emails and maybe get one back, but it was just the thought of just keeping and trying to reach out to people. That's what mattered. And, that one person that happened to have that correct connection with you, helped you become who you are today, or, helped you expand your network to who you are today. So I think that's beautiful. So thank you for sharing that and always giving us that motto to be curious and not to ever say no.
You just said something too that I want to make sure that others hear. You had rejections or people not responding to you. It's very easy to think about, oh, this person is having success. Well, that's the tip of the iceberg. And tips of the iceberg are just a fraction of the total size of it. You don't see the journey unless you take the time and learn about it. And the journey starts with the first step, and the second step, and the third step over a prolonged period of time. There's a friend of mine who just started her own law firm, but it's really exciting to see because I know the journey that she's been on. I know the reason why she left the organization she's with today, and I know the trajectory of her future. She has done so much, but you take a look at the prior 9 years that led her to this point. 9 years of building her brand, step by step by step. That's really important because we live in a fast-paced society, and we forget that it does involve hard work, It does involve rejection, and how you have to take that rejection is an opportunity to learn and grow and do something different the next time around. And I hope that that's what your viewers take away from this. It is, you look at women like who you've interviewed, Sylvia Acevedo and Grazia Vittadini, steps to where they are today. And it involved a lot of no's. It involved a lot of yeses. And they are in turn empowering other people to be their best.
Yeah, it's just, when looking back at all of the podcasts, people I've had on the interviews, including yourself, I'm always mind blown that I had the opportunity to talk with such incredible individuals because, I mean, you have such busy lives. You guys are doing so much. You're very successful in your daily lives, but you still take the time to come and spend time to give back and just share your advice with the next generation. I think that's really empowering and so honoring for me as well, because at first, when I was doing this, I didn't think I could talk with anyone because I don't know anyone in the space industry. This was just all from social media and LinkedIn. So, and Twitter, of course. And these are like the main social media platforms that I've used, but it's mainly connecting with people through social media. Otherwise, I don't know anyone. So it's amazing to see how you guys are so willing to trust and also share your knowledge for everyone. I think that's amazing. Thank you.
Well, one of the things that COVID-19 did, the silver lining, it allowed organizations to tap into Zoom and to create global networks, really create global networks, bring people who normally do not attend industry events for whatever reason, cost, travel, you name it. It allowed us to pull you in. And I've said this before on a couple of different events where I've been fortunate to participate. I hope that never goes away. We're reaching a new audience. We're making space, aviation, more accessible. We're giving people a forum to participate, to learn and grow, including ourselves. So we must take the time. We need to consider, how do we bring more people into the industry? And this is something that I've been very focused on for a couple of years now. There's an amazing woman, Dr. Rebecca Ludi, who serves on the FAA Women's Advisory Board. Their focus has been to say, what brings women into the aviation industry? What keeps them from staying? Because we're finding out that women do not stay. And how do we create a framework? Knowledge is power. And in addition to STEM, the reason why women join is because of adventure. And we need to marry the excitement of STEM with the thrill of adventure to bring more women in and to bring them in at a younger age, and to also highlight this as a career for parents and career counselors.
Yes, exactly. I think those are amazing points. That's exactly what I'm trying to do with Ignited Thinkers. I think you just embodied it with one response, which is when I see the statistics of like only 18% of female are in aerospace, whereas it's 82% male, that statistic shocks me because I'm like, we are in the 21st century. We have had so much, so many women, trailblazing women who've led us to this position we are in today. Yet we see a lot of girls interested in STEM but drop out. And that could be because of many reasons. And one of them mainly being like, the lack of them seeing diversity, them seeing the growth that they have in the aerospace industry, harassment. I've interviewed women who have faced sexual harassment on, at their workplaces, or being the only girl in a physics classroom surrounded by, other dejecting men. It's like, we've come a long way, and there are people who are so willing to support and there's various platforms where we can meet people who look like us. But yeah, at the same time, there's still a long way to go because we see that a lot of girls are dropping out at a young age, even though they're interested in aerospace. So that's definitely a root cause problem that we're working to change and resolve. We have a long way to go, but because of women who, like Dr. Mae Jameson, the first African American woman who went to space, because of trailblazers like her, we've obviously come a long way. But like you were saying, we still have a long way to go. So I'm glad for the progression that we do have.
And it is at the forefront, not just of the government, it's also at the forefront of investors too, because there are links between diverse groups, their profitability, as well as the valuation. So that causes investors to demand change. Now, we need to be very careful about linking one with the other because, going back to what I said before, it doesn't involve the discussion of the journey. How do we get there? And so what it does, it forces all of us to think about how do we invest in other people? And I want to bring up the topic of scarcity. As I was growing up in my career in finance, there weren't a lot of women in it.
Mhm.
And sometimes there was the notion that I felt it was never voiced to me, but there could be only one woman at the table, and I had to wait my turn. We need to change that. We need to be willing to say, if I like something that someone else has done, that's amazing. That's an opening for me to do the same or be inspired to do something of my own way. What I like to do, this is something that I've started doing, is when I see a friend of mine on LinkedIn who's written an article or done something amazing, whether it be a man or a woman, but particularly a woman, I want to highlight that that was really amazing and why I really enjoyed it and how others can do the same thing. So for me, we have to use our voices, not just our like button, but we have to use our voices to make sure that people are watching, that they're listening, that we want to expand opportunities for others. And one of the sincerest forms of flattery is having somebody follow in your footsteps. So, Gitika, I hope that there's more young people who do exactly what you're doing. Get the message out and inspire others to be their best.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, honestly, there was so my first Ignited Thinkers event was at an orphanage in India. It was actually quite coincidental how that happened because a person I knew here in Virginia, she funds an orphanage in India, and I was going there for vacation that summer because that's where my grandparents live. And the orphanage happened to be an hour or so away, and it was like the perfect event. And I think I was done with middle school at that point, so I was done with eighth grade, and it was my first Ignited Thinkers event, and I taught 75 kids, around 75, how to build model rockets and get into like aerospace. And I remember at the beginning of the workshop, I asked like what careers they wanted to do. And most of them were like, I want to be a civil servant, a police officer, a doctor, or an engineer, but I did not hear one space career. And at the end of the 2-day session that I had with them, I asked them, who wants to go into an aerospace career? And I think a lot of people raised their hand. And one girl specifically at the end, she came up to me and she's like, "Thank you so much for doing this." She like call in India they call you by the relation of like a sister, and so she's like, she called me a sister. And she's like, "Thank you so much for coming. I want to be like you when I grow up." And that was like the best moment of my life that I'm never gonna forget. And it just that's what keeps me going with Ignited Thinkers. Because of the pandemic, I'm shifting to virtual means, but the moment we're kind of back to more normal circumstances, just going and interacting with students and sharing my love for space sciences with them is what I love to do. So, just of course, that impact and that powerful message that you're giving, as well as what I'm working towards to give, is definitely something that keeps me going. And your work as well, your journey so far, just hearing it is very inspirational. And I know I have a few more questions I want to ask you, but thank you for bringing that point up.
Absolutely. I think what my generation has to do is spend time getting to know your generation, because things have changed, motivations have changed. My motivations have changed from when I was your age. Technology has changed, and we have to listen as well as speak.
Yeah, and another question that I wanted to really ask you before was, you were talking about the International Aviation Women Association and how this has played a big role for you. And so could you expand more about what you do and the purpose of this network?
Well, the purpose of the network, we are really focused on highlighting great leadership and building the next generation of female leaders in the aviation industry. There's so many other organizations out there, and they're not exclusive. So I do want to say that I've said it before on a couple of different places. I'm a member of a number of women's groups, but Iowa, as we like to call it, or Iowa, as others like to call it, is really focused on building leadership for the next generation. And we do that through a couple of different means. The first is we offer 9 scholarships globally at universities for women studying in various aspects of aviation and aerospace. Some are focused on the law, some are focused on STEM, some are focused on business. It just depends upon the university partner. We don't just we don't just write a check. We think of it truly as an investment in the future. And there's a couple of ways that we do that. So it goes back to mindset. When you become an Iowa scholarship recipient, you not only receive the check, you also are invited to attend our annual conference. And from there, you're partnered with at least 2 mentors, one of the board and one of the advisory board. And this past year, we did something unique for our Embry-Riddle scholarship recipient, because one of our past Embry-Riddle scholarship recipients, who now works for FedEx, was there. And I asked her, this is really important to me because I'm in my 50s and you're a little bit closer in age to our scholarship recipient, and you've been in the shoes she's in. And so we create this mentorship. We introduce people to others so that they learn about the different careers and options that are available in the aviation industry, and that they build their network. And that comes in handy as they enter the workforce, but also as they grow throughout it too. We also include our scholarship recipients. We give them 1 year of our scholar membership as part of their package. And that is really exciting because it's 12 months of meeting with someone who you are matched with through the power of AI. We have a platform that you can access on your phone, not just your desktop. And that facilitates a lot of really wonderful discussions. Additionally, with our university partners, we think of them as partners, and we try to create different events that highlight what being a member of Iowa is. And also, we take a look and ask, how can we bring more women into your program, whether it be as students or as faculty? And we evaluate that on an annual basis. And the beautiful part about it is that we try to have a member of Iowa who's in that country where the university is, to really build that relationship up and look for opportunities. And it's amazing what you find, the cross-pollination of the different diverse mindsets, the different diverse backgrounds that everyone brings to this, and to see where we can go, how we can build off of each other's achievements. So that's one of the many things that I like to talk about: the scholarship program, the mentoring program. We're building that out globally. You do not need to be a scholar member of Iowa to join the mentorship program, but you do need to be a member to be a mentor. And we're also looking to expand our relationships with our stakeholders, as well as find opportunities for young women who do want to enter the aviation industry, the aviation and aerospace industry on a global basis. And so there will be more coming out about that in the new year. And then for our members, we have the Career Growth Committee. And it really is about building your framework of what leadership is about and getting to know the opportunities that Iowa brings. For me, it really has changed how I view success, how I value other people. And this has in turn reshaped my lens on what good leadership looks like. It's definitely a work in progress that I'm constantly working on. And we talked about that earlier in the day, some of the things that I do in order to center myself and look for opportunities of growth. There's no way possible to know everything, and being vulnerable, being courageous to learn more, to obtain feedback. Sometimes you don't want to hear it, but you have to in order to grow. And looking to bring others in who do not possess the same experiences that I have, so that I can see things through a different lens. That's been really impactful to me. And some of the experiences that bring me the greatest joy have been when I've been in a position to provide an opportunity for someone else and to see them grow and to turn around and pay that forward. So good work is meant to be shared.
I actually did not know this much about the Iowa program. I read about it, but I did not know the extent to how much it's so empowering. And just hearing you describe it, and the purpose of it and how it's grown, it's just beautiful to hear how it's empowering all these young students. How can we support this initiative, or as high school students or college students, how can we learn more about this program? Is there a specific website or platform that you would tell everyone to go do it?
Well, what I would say is that if you're interested, check out iowa.org, IAWA.org, to learn more about the organization. There is a specific page to sign up to if you're interested in being a part of the mentoring program. And we're very excited about this. For those who are in a leadership role in aviation, we'd love for you to consider being a member. We now offer opportunities for both women and men. As you pointed out, the landscape of women and men in aviation and aerospace is unbalanced. And we look for men who value what women bring to leadership positions to become a part of the organization. For women who are starting their career, we offer a role called the apprentice. It's a way to say yes, become involved in one of our many committees. It allows you to build your leadership skills. It allows you to really see how others in the industry are currently thinking about different activities. And for the women who are in college right now, we do offer scholar memberships. And as I said before, if you are a scholar or an apprentice member, we definitely want you to become in our mentoring program.
That's wonderful
It's,
to hear.
this is me being a little selfish too. In order to be a great leader, you have to be able to be open and listening to others.
Mhm.
And my relationship with my mentee is one where I'm learning as much as she is. And it's supporting my ongoing growth as well as hers. So we get to be a part of each other's future successes. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's nice to see those two parallels, kind of share your work and your journeys together and find those synergies. I definitely can see how a mentor-mentee relationship is so powerful. I have amazing mentors in my life as well who, are in space medicine. And so it's nice to connect with them and be like, oh, wait, I can do this, I can do that. That's so cool. So it's definitely empowering like that. And I'm glad that you're able to foster these meaningful connections to inspire, minorities in aerospace and STEM. That's very nice. And you've given plenty of advice throughout this interview, but I always ask, the final question, learning about your journey as well as the work that you're doing. The final question that I always ask all interviewers is, what final piece of advice do you have for young students in maybe high school or undergraduate or, young 20s who really want to go into the STEM, aerospace industry, really just any career? Something you wish someone told you when you were, their age?
Ooh, there's so many things that come to mind, but a few of them are: say yes to opportunities when they come your way, especially if it's going to push you outside of your comfort zone. You will grow by leaps and bounds. And don't be afraid of failure, ever. I look back on, there was one time where I was at an event, and in the middle of the room was Phil Knight, the CEO and founder of Nike. And you don't bring Phil Knight out unless you're offering him just some sort of major recognition, which they did, the organizers did. And he talked about failure. And at that point in my career, I was very closed off. I didn't have the mindset to say failure is something that will allow you to turn around and grow. And that's exactly what Mr. Knight did. At that point, he said his greatest successes have come from failure. That wasn't exactly what he said, but I'm paraphrasing it. And it got me thinking about the grit that we need to have, and we need to build, and we need to foster in others. Every setback is part of your journey. It's a part of those steps. And look for the lesson that you can learn in that. I think that's really powerful. The other bit of advice I would say is, successes are wonderful. You need to have them. But the deeper successes that you have, when you build partnerships, when you become really engaged and make a success transformational rather than transaction, that will stay with you for a very long time. And that's something that Dr. Pippa Grange, who's a sports psychologist, talks about as a deep win over a shallow win. So what I would say to people who are listening, look for ways to create those deep wins early on in your relationships. They will sustain you. Those relationships that you build will support you throughout your career. And one final bit of advice, and this is what I said when I spoke to the team at FedEx Express, is I learned that my value and that of others is not a function of our success. It is not built upon singular points in time. Our value is something that we have to acknowledge and build and foster and recognize the value in others.
That's so powerful. I mean, that's very inspirational to see. You're like, I can see the emotion and the passion in your face as you're speaking. I think it's, so important to recognize that don't take a failure. I mean, obviously, I'm just in high school, so I haven't faced the worst of the worst, but I can say that, like, just taking, don't take no as an option. I think Miss Acevedo was also, how you're mentioning how you saw her interview. She also mentioned, she's never taken no for an answer. And she asked them, why did you say no to me? And she corrects that. So, same thing with your journey and everyone else's. Just remember to never ever say no and to overcome those obstacles and I know it's hard. It's easy to kind of just say it, but also just keeping in mind that things are going to get better is very important. So I want to thank you so, so much for your advice and your time today. I mean, off of just a LinkedIn message, I think it's incredible how you're able to spend time with others. So thank you for your raw story today. It was so inspirational to hear, and I'm very honored to have your time. And I will definitely keep your journey with me as I trek on with my future aspirations.
Well, Gitika, as part of the whole conversation on deep winds, I want to stay involved. I want to see your career blossom. I want to see where you are and the people you've brought with you over your career. So I hope you allow me to stay in touch with you. That is so inspiring, the work that you're doing and how it's lending itself to allow others to grow and stay curious as well.
Thank you so much. It would be an honor for me to be connected with you, and thank you for your time.